Hey, welcome back to Tech Tip Tuesday. Today I'm going to be talking about some really easy things that you can look for as you're finalizing your pattern to catch some common mistakes with your quilt pattern illustrations. Now, this is coming from years of working as a tech editor. These are some of the things that I just kind of routinely quickly look for as I'm skimming through the pattern to make sure everything matches. And you can kind of do this a little bit asynchronously. So you want to go through and read the pattern, of course, but aside from that, you also just want to kind of look at each individual diagram and check for these things that we're going to talk about. And doing that kind of at the end, right before you send it off to your tech editor, can catch a lot of these mistakes and make your tech editing bill a little bit shorter. All right, mistake number one is not having the labels match what's actually in the text. So for instance, if you had an instruction that said gather 2A, 2B, and 1D, and then you showed this diagram that doesn't have a D on it, it has an F actually, that's a problem, right? You want your text to match your diagrams and vice versa. Now, we don't actually know which one is wrong. Is it the text that's wrong or is it the label on the diagram that's wrong? But either way, we need to make these two things match. And this goes hand in hand with another really common mistake, which is not having the correct fabric in the diagram. So you're calling for one specific fabric in the instructions, but the diagram is actually reflecting a completely different fabric. And right here, I just have kind of solid fabric shown in here. I tend to write really modern patterns, so these are the kinds of diagrams that I have. But if you're writing patterns that have prints in them and you're reflecting those prints in the diagrams as well, it's even more important. You have to make sure that the print actually matches the correct fabric type and that matches with the cover quilt as well. Right? You don't want to have any of these kind of conflicting bits of information in your pattern. Really, really important. All right, let's talk about mistake number two, which is having kind of labels and pressing arrows that are not a good color for the diagram, right? So we've got yellow in this diagram on like a light gray background. And you can see if I use kind of bright yellow arrows over that kind of yellow fabric that I have already in there, it's just really hard to see. That's hard to look at. It just kind of feels like it's assaulting your eyeballs a little bit. And it's just really hard to see. So this would not be a good color. You want to use black here or maybe a red or a green, something that's going to contrast really well and make those arrows stand out. The same thing can happen with the letter label that I have on that center yellow square, right? White on yellow, probably not a great choice, right? There's not enough contrast there. So there's a couple of things that you could do here. You could put like a little translucent white square behind it. That wouldn't work for this particular instance, but if you have like a really busy print or dark fabric and you want to use a black label, you can put a little translucent white square behind that letter and that'll give you enough contrast to be able to see it. But here the fix would actually be to just use black text. You don't want to use light on light. You want to have nice contrast there. So just kind of skimming through your pattern and checking for these things, making sure you can see all of those important markings on the diagram is another really common mistake that I catch when I'm tech editing. Mistake number three is not having the dimensions be correct on the diagram. So for instance, if you've got text that says that this should be an 18-inch block, 18.5 by 18.5, right? And then on the diagram, you show it being 15.5 by 15.5. This happens really frequently as you're drawing the illustrations for your pattern because you're just kind of copying and pasting a lot of these things and then changing a couple of things. This is how these things end up being messed up. But obviously this is a problem, right? Again, you don't want to have conflicting information from your instructions conflicting with your illustrations. That's a big no-no. So just checking to make sure that the dimensions actually reflect what is true, really important. And then the last mistake that I see frequently is also not having the counts correct. So you can see at the top here, I've got make 2, but if you were actually supposed to make 4 of this block, that's a problem. So just kind of skimming through and making sure that the counts are actually correct. Also, again, very important. So these kind of 4, 5-ish mistakes that I've talked about today are things that once you've got your pattern written and you're getting ready to send it to your tech editor or publish or send it to your tech testers if you don't send to a tech editor, you want to go through your pattern and just kind of skim for these things, right? Don't worry about reading every single line or even going in order. In fact, sometimes working through the pattern backwards is really helpful, but you just want to go through and say, hey, okay, do my labels match my text? Do they actually reflect what should be there? Do the letters and pressing arrows, are they visible? Do I have enough contrast with the colors that I've chosen for those? Are my dimensions correct? Are my counts correct? All of these things. Just kind of ask yourself those questions and skim through your pattern looking for these specific things. And I guarantee you will catch a lot more mistakes than if you just kind of work to make it perfectly correct on the first try, or if you just kind of read through the pattern linearly and try to correct every single mistake that you see, because you are going to miss them doing that. It's better to do multiple kind of passes looking for specific things than it is to do one thing. So those are 4 really common mistakes that you can kind of check for in your quilt pattern as you are finalizing and getting ready to send it to either your tech editor or your testers or whoever it goes to next. And I don't recommend that you kind of just work linearly through the pattern, starting at the beginning and going all the way through to the end, reading the entire pattern. You want to kind of do this in passes. Go through, check for all of your labels matching, and then go through again and just kind of skim quickly through and check them, make sure that all the letters and pressing errors are visible, right? And then just kind of iterate through in multiple passes. You will catch way more mistakes than if you try and read it word by word, just correcting every single mistake as you go. There's too much, you're going to forget some and miss them things, and I promise you will ultimately have a better result if you kind of work through it in these editing passes. This is what I do as a tech editor myself. If you found this kind of thing helpful, I'm also going to drop a link in the description for my self-editing guide. This is kind of a 2-page document that just has a bunch of these different really common mistakes. It's a checklist, and you can work through your pattern in multiple passes. I recommend using this as you are getting it prepped for your tech editor. It will shorten your tech editing charge significantly because you've gone through and kind of done all of the editing, pre-editing work to make the document that you're sending to your editor a little bit cleaner so they don't have as much work to do. It is totally free. Go check out the link and get a download in your inbox right away. If you found this video helpful, make sure you like and subscribe. It's really, really helpful to help other pattern designers find these videos and make their patterns better. Alrighty, that's all I've got for today. Make sure you come back for next time's Tech Tip Tuesday. See ya.